Welcome back to the channel, everyone. Today we are in Chesterton, which is just 1.5 miles away from village of Harbury, where we left last video, looking at the hidden truths along this Templar line, as well as its uncanny connection with the US. The ancient windmill in Chesterton is one of the most well-known and admired landmarks in the heart of England, and is said to be the oldest windmill in England, with its workings still intact. It is located around 7 miles from the town of Leamington Spa. The windmill is sited on a hill where for almost 400 years to the north overlooks the famous Fossway, which is the old Roman road which still serves as an important archery for travellers throughout central England. Looking towards the south, it overlooks the village of Chesterton. The windmill is said to have been built between 1632 and 1633, allegedly by Edward Pato, who was lord of the local manor at the time, and said to be designed by the influential architect Inigo Jones. Inigo was regarded as the first significant architect in England and Wales during the early modern period, who was the first person to introduce the classical architecture of Rome and the Italian Renaissance to Britain. Inigo was said to be in Chesterton at the time, designing Pato's new manor house. It is said he probably helped with the design of this windmill as well. Edward Pato was a profound mathematician and astrologer. It is said that this monument had originally been built as an observatory, but they say it was very soon converted to a working windmill grinding corn. Edward Pato was also a parliamentarian, just like his father. Pato also took control of the nearby Warwick Castle during the siege of August 1642. From the clear and compelling evidence presented in this video, you shall see that it would appear to be just hearsay what we are told, with no factual evidence proving that Pato actually built this monument. From my research, it is of my opinion that this monument could have been constructed much earlier than we are told, with the research indicating it was more likely to have been built either by the Knights Templars or previous advanced human civilization such as the Moors or Romans. It is far more likely the monument was originally built to serve a much greater purpose, possibly as an astronomical calendar similar to Stonehenge, or even some kind of energy device generating free energy from the original Earth energy grid system, supplying power to the former human settlement in this area, then only to be repurposed and converted into a windmill by Pato in around 1632, who was then alleged and had been given credit for its build. This is a similar story to many other important ancient buildings and monuments located all around the world, where the credit from the original builders has been deliberately stolen by the controllers and given to their own key character or players. Let's dive deep and discover some hidden truths of this Templar alignment. As we see it today, it resembles some kind of folly rather than a windmill. This is due to the foresails being removed around 18 months ago, as they were considered to be unsafe and required restoration. The mill is built of local limestone, locally referred to as Harbury stone, with sandstone detailing. As we can see, it's positioned on a shallow, raised platform, approximately 72 feet in diameter. The mill tower has a rotating dome-shaped cap with a height of 36 feet and is supported on 6 semicircular arches on piers. Let's take a look at the Roman connection. As mentioned earlier, towards the north, the windmill overlooks the Fossway, which is the longest Roman road in Britain, which was said to have been built during the 1st and 2nd centuries AD. It was regarded as the region's main artery cutting through the heart and centre of England, linking Exeter in the southwest of the country to Lincoln. Originally, the road covered a distance of 182 miles or 293 kilometres. Over a matter of time, and due to a number of changes and diversions from the original route, the Fossway is today around 229 miles or 369 kilometres long. Also, to me, the Fossway reminds me of the world famous Route 66 in the US, which is a historical highway that ran from Chicago to Los Angeles, cutting through 6 different states. I wonder, could Route 66 have been born from an idea originating from the Fossway, considering the Foss would appear passing through 6 counties in England? At the foot of this escarpment, adjacent to the Fossway, lies the ancient Roman town of Great Chesterton. The settlement is now buried beneath farmland. We can see the remains of the Roman defence ditch by looking at the light green field on the centre of the screen. In 1992, a survey in surrounding fields to the west and south revealed activity over a larger area than previously thought, revealing the presence of a very large Roman settlement, which had mixed magnetic results, with evidence pointing to extensive occupation levels, building remains, streets and roads, wells and drainage systems, with artificial evidence pointing to occupation from the 2nd to 4th centuries AD, with the indication of an earlier Iron Age occupation of the site. So, as always, I like to ask questions, so this raises the obvious question. Is the windmill much older than what we are led to believe? And is the windmill what's left from the buried advanced human civilization? What do you guys think? Let's take a look further into some more intriguing evidence. As we can see, the windmill is positioned on a shallow raised stage of approximately 72 feet in diameter, which is encircled by a low perimeter wall. To me, this symbolises a Taurus stone and Taurus field. with the monument standing on a stone circle at the centre, creating a donut shape of toroidal field, otherwise referred to as a vortex. For anyone who's not familiar with toroidal fields, here is a short video giving a simple explanation.
A toroidal field is a captivating energy pattern that assumes the shape of a torus, reminiscent of a donut or a vortex. It serves as a gateway, connecting multiple dimensions and providing a conduit for the flow of energy and information. Within the realm of esoteric philosophy, the toroidal field is considered a fundamental structure underlying the fabric of reality itself. In the exploration of metaphysics and the hidden realms of existence, the concept of toroidal fields has emerged as a profound and captivating phenomenon. These fields, which manifest as torus-shaped energy patterns, are believed to serve as gateways to unseen dimensions, bridging the gap between the physical and the metaphysical.
In July 2018, in the fields adjacent to the windmill, a large geometric crop circle mysteriously appeared overnight. I have managed to find some incredible drone footage taken by Nick from Stonehenge Dronescapes, which features this crop circle and shows the windmill with its former sails still intact. I'll pop a link to Nick's channel in the video description. Let's focus our attention with the windmill's uncanny link to the US with the almost identical Newport Tower, which also has many conflicting stories about its origin. We are told a copy of Chesterton Windmill was built in Newport, Rhode Island in the US, by who we are told Governor Benedict Arnold in about 1676. William Arnold, his father, happened to be born in Leamington Spa in Warwickshire, and his son was just 16 when Chesterton Windmill was said to be built. The Arnold family migrated to Rhode Island in 1635, where Benedict became governor in 1663. The previous mill at Newport was blown down in 1675, and a stone mill was built in its place. It is very similar to Chesterton Mill, as you can see, the main difference being Newport having 8 arched pillars and Chesterton having 6. It so happens that a portion of Arnold's Rhode Island estate was also known as Leamington Farm. On his death in 1678, Arnold had referred to the tower in Newport in his will as the stone-built windmill. Given these domestic links to Warwickshire, it is said that the governor must have had the tower built as a windmill following the design of Chesterton Windmill, with which he would have been undoubtedly familiar with. During the last 100 years, claims have advanced that Newport Tower was built by, among others, Portuguese, Moors, and Chinese explorers. Could this just be a similar story to cover up almost identical hidden truths at both Newport and Chesterton? Let's watch the brief news article on Newport Tower and look out for the symbology they use in this clip.
People come from all over the world just to see this tower, and it's one of Rhode Island's stranger things.
The Newport Tower is the oldest structure in Rhode Island.
It's believed to be at least 400 years old.
It's different than most architecture in Rhode Island, which is all wood and rectangular buildings. This one is circular, very unusual.
The biggest mystery? Who built it and why?
Well, there are a couple of main theories.
Jim Egan runs the Newport Tower Museum. He's written a dozen books on the tower.
By the way, this is my translation.
Egan says it was the English in the 1580s who wanted to create a settlement in the New World.
And John Dee was an advisor to Queen Elizabeth, and he was also a brilliant mathematician and an architect, and I believe he designed this tower to be like a clock.
He said the English built the tower, but the settlement failed.
They didn't very often build in stone until really the late 1600s.
David Brody says it's even older. He's written 15 books on the Knights Templar, and he thinks the tower was built in 1398 by the Templar, and as a result, Freemasons gather here every year.
A number of architectural features, historical similarities between this tower and other Templar construction.
No matter who built it, its purpose seems clear. In the 1990s, URI professor William Penhallow began solving the tower's mysteries. The structure is an astronomical timepiece.
The horologium, a building that keeps track of time.
Sort of like a Rhode Island Stonehenge.
If you come here on December 21st, the winter solstice, the sun will shine through that south window you see there, through the tower, out the west window, and you can observe it from the northeast corner of the park. And sure enough, this event happens every year like clockwork on December 21st.
And there it is. It's not just the winter solstice this tower can track. Every 18.6 years for what's called a lunar minor, the full moon shines through the west window. It also tracks the North Star and equinoxes, but the winter solstice is the most dramatic.
And it's the most important because it does, relate to the sun, and the sun is the source of all of our light and all of our heat.
75 minutes after the solstice sun shines through the window, this happens. The sunlight shines on this odd-shaped rock within the tower.
Days are getting darker and darker. All of a sudden we have this rebirth, and that's what we think is going on. That's the symbolism behind the tower on the winter solstice.
Efforts are underway to find more alignments and to scientifically date the age of the Newport Tower. Happy winter.
Let's focus our attention on the current small village of Chesterton itself. Chesterton is located within a valley which was home to Peyto's Grand Mansion, as well as looking at the Knights Templar connection. It is of no coincidence that the news article you've just seen also mentioned the Knights Templar. The village of Chesterton happens to be located on a major Templar ley line, which continues flowing towards the northwest through to the Knights Templar field, as mentioned in one of my previous videos on Warwick's Castle Park. There also happens to be another ley which crosses this Templar line. This other ley continues running through to the Harbury cutting. In the previous video, I used the analogy of the Earth energy grid being the equivalent to that of a chessboard. It's strange that the first 4 letters of Chesterton is chess. The village was first mentioned in the Domesday Book of 1086. It is said to have been recorded that a William Crock, who was an important and wealthy landowner at the time, gifted his servant run 4 furgates in Chesterton. A furgate is an early English measure of land of about 30 acres. Run then gave to the Knights Templars, among whose possession they were recorded in 1185 as the Alms of William Crock, due to the military order of the Knights Templar. A Geoffrey Fitzstephen, who was a Grand Master of the Templars, was granted by King Henry II legal authority of all Brun's land and property in Chesterton. So the land was significantly important to the Templars. At the heart of the village is the medieval 12th century church of St Giles. It stands in an isolated position on rising ground around 1.5 miles southeast of the Fossway, and is very typical in the design to many other Templar churches at the time. It's worth pointing out that the Templars were well known for constructing subterranean tunnels. So it is very likely there would have been, or still are, the remains of a tunnel at Chesterton. Locals say that there is a tunnel connecting the church to Humblebee Cottages, just to the north of the church. I also remember seeing a credible article a few years back, which, of no surprise, has now been removed, claiming that remains of a tunnel had been discovered on some privately owned land, suggesting that it could have been connected from Chesterton to Warwick Castle. The distance in a straight line from the village to Warwick Castle just happens to be a distance of 6 miles. No surprise there, with all the symbolism to the number 6 used by controllers. It's also interesting, in my last video on the Harbury cutting, the tunnel which divides the east and west cuttings is 66 metres long, and the cutting being 600 feet wide. When we take a look at the plan of the church and look at the length of the church from the nave just before the tower to the other side, happens to be a length of, you guessed it, 60 feet. Coincidence by any chance? The interior of the church gives me the impression of an almost tunnel-like structure. What do you guys think? So, in my honest opinion, with the clues we have been given and the connection to the Templars, I believe it is far more likely that there would have been a 6-mile tunnel connecting Chesterton with the castle. Running along the back of the church, I noticed a rather unusual trench. To me, this shows clear evidence of a structure under the church. I wonder, could the church have been built over a previous structure such as temple? What do we have here? A vent cover. Could this be for a subterranean crypt, or even the tunnel which the locals say connect the church to Humblebee Cottage? This cover also faces that direction, as you can see on the Google Earth image on the screen. Let's bring our attention back to Peyto, who is said died on 21st of September 1643 and is said to be buried at this church. Peyto had a brick gateway built at the back of the church in 1632. Supposedly the same year that the windmill was said to have been built and designed by Inigo Jones. Today, this gateway is simply referred to as Peyto's Gateway. Looking at this gateway today, it doesn't appear to me that the structure we can see today was built in the 1600s like they tell us. Comparing the windmill to this gate, it looks like this gate was built much later than that, possibly built in the 1800s or even the 1900s. I do believe, however, that there could have been a much earlier original gate standing at this exact point sometime before, which was destroyed and replaced by the one we can see today. Peyto's mansion formerly stood on an eminence in the field called Image Hill to the northwest of the church. Chesterton House is one of the most significant lost houses of Warwickshire. The mansion house, which was said to have been built for Edward Peyto in the 1600s. From my research, there seems to be some discrepancy on when this mansion was actually built, with some sources stating it was built in the mid-17th century, which happened to be after the death of Peyto. The manor was said to have replaced previous moated medieval manor, and was surrounded by a 17th century designed landscape park. It was recorded that during the second half of the 18th century there was a dispute over the inheritance of the estate, and in 1802 the house was demolished to prevent it passing to rival claimants. From the research I have done, it is my opinion that Peyto was just another character, a key player and a servant to the controller's malevolent deities, who had an important role to play at his time relating to the controller's agendas during the 17th century, somewhat similar to the roles of the infamous characters like Brunel and Aleister Crowley during the 1800s and 1900s. It's not surprising that all three of these characters just happen to have some connections with this area and the nearby town of Leamington Spa. The Peyto brick gateway, in my opinion, is standing for the sole purpose of symbolising a gateway on the Earth grid. Not only do we have the gateway we have just seen with the Templar lay, I have also identified 7 lays running through here and the surrounding areas. All 7 of these lays continue to Warwick Castle, where they all cross. Let's now follow the Templar alignment through Peyto's Gateway and head northwest around 4 miles towards the castle, where around 9 years ago there was a large investment of hundreds of millions of pounds, or even in the billions, was made with the development of a brand new modern human settlement, a whole new neighbourhood the size of a small town. This has been referred to as the Warwick Gateway. This urban extension created a minimum of 1,600 homes, primary and secondary schools, a local centre and even a country park. So, in my opinion again, Warwick Gateway, is that not symbolising a gateway on the Earth grid? This is the area as well where the 7 lays pass through and start getting closer together as they merge closer when they end up intersecting at Warwick Castle. We should be looking in more details regarding gateways and their role on the Earth energy grid in forthcoming videos. We are now standing by this gorgeous giant redwood which is on the new development. This giant redwood was one of the trees that was cultivated from John Hitchman's Arboretum, which I featured in one of my previous videos on the healing waters of Leamington Spa. This cedar wasn't planted here by chance. In my opinion, it was planted for a specific reason as some kind of marker of the earth energy. As you can see from this footage, it is perfectly aligned with the Warwick Castle Tower, and it's of no surprise that developments left a gap between the houses where the alignment falls from Giant Redwood and Warwick Castle. This proves that the giant redwood was not planted there just by chance. Let's finish the video just a stone's throw away from the castle, which is adjacent to Templars Field at Castle Park, where I did a previous video on. In February 2018, the BBC featured an article discovering another buried Roman settlement. It was during the relocation and building of the town's private girls' school called King's High. A large 2nd century villa was discovered. It is said to have been the largest Roman villa discovered in Britain, the villa being at 92 feet long and 48 feet wide. According to the article, the principal archaeologist Stuart Palmer said the building probably forms a component of a large villa estate, which must have spread along the banks of the River Avon and connected to the Roman road system. So this would have undoubtedly have been connected to the buried town of Great Chesterton, which we talked about earlier, forming part of a much larger advanced past human settlement located on this part of the Earth grid. Not only are the 7 ley lines intersecting at Castle, there have also been documented and recorded a total of 7 buried ancient human civilizations, all within 10 miles of the castle. So, what did the controllers do when they rediscovered this buried settlement? What else? The same as they always do. Just keep reusing the same old, tired and worn out script, which has now exceeded its expiry date. They reburied and built over it, only for it to be rediscovered again in around 200 years or so. This is what stands here today, with the newly built private girls' school standing on top of the reburied ancient ruins. Thanks guys for watching the video to the end, and if you enjoyed this video and found it interesting, remember to hit the like and subscribe. The truth, unconditional love and light always wins. Keep raising your own energy by living in the frequency of unconditional love. The divine light of good always prevails and continues to shine brighter and brighter and will never be extinguished. Love, light and peace to you.